I spent the last couple of days talking about some goals that I have once COVID 19 is all over. COVID 19 has kind of allowed me to avoid a major source of anxiety. I haven't had to deal with it for the last year. Go watch my last video. But I do want to eventually get over the particular anxiety that I was talking about. But I just realized there's another source of anxiety in my life. I have a hard time with handling uncertainty, and I have sometimes when I think uncertain things are going to show up in my email or on my mailbox or on the phone, I have a tendency to avoid checking those things, and sometimes it causes a lot of conflict. Many years ago, I had done a gig on Craigslist, and one of my clients had owed me $50, and he had to leave town in a hurry and promised to send me a check. And so for the next week or so, I would go to the mailbox, and I used to get a lot of snail mail. Nowadays, you can turn off the snail mail on all your service providers, but I used to get a lot of that stuff. And I would go to the mailbox and pick up a stack of mail about that thick, thinking the check was going to be in there. I think money was kind of tight at the time too, so I was anxiously waiting for the check, and it wouldn't be in there. And it was such a letdown for a couple of days that I just stopped going to the mailbox. I never had anything really important in the mail anyhow. Most of the stuff I could handle online. It became such a big source of anxiety because I would go to the mailbox thinking it was done with, and had my client just said that, could you give me 2 weeks to pay? The money's kind of tight. I probably could have accepted that a whole lot better than going out to the mailbox and getting this letdown day after day, especially after a long day at work, and I come home to the mailbox and having this letdown over and over and over and over and over and over. And so I stopped checking the mailbox altogether out of anxiety. And finally, when I couldn't wait no more, the mailbox was full. The mailman had posted a sticker on my mailbox saying that he couldn't deliver the mail because it was full. So finally, I go to open the mailbox, and I didn't realize that I had a copay for a doctor I hadn't paid, and he sent quite a number of angry letters. And when I explained to him why I hadn't checked the mail, and I pleaded with him to not report me for being so late. He didn't, but I was worried he would report me to the credit card reporting agencies, and he laughed at me for that. And he told me that the mail's not going to change whether you check it or not. You're just going to give yourself more anxiety by not checking. And I finally realized. Eventually, my client did pay up. He actually was a little bit juggling a little bit too many things at the same time, and I guess he also had a little anxiety about checking what to do. So that was good. But that wasn't the only time I let that happen to me. Earlier this year, before COVID, I was working on a tutoring gig with somebody else that I had found on Craigslist. And this guy, I hate to say he was disorganized. He did have some disabilities, but it was the scheduling was very tricky. For example, our very first session, he caused quite a little bit of conflict when he scheduled to meet at the. He and I had scheduled to meet at the library. The library is open until 9 p.m. or it was, and we're going to meet there from 7 to 8. And then at 6:30, he sends me a text saying that if we could meet at a Starbucks somewhere else. And Starbucks closes at 6:30. And now I'm trying to text him to explain to him that they close. This was in the winter time, so it's not like we could sit outside or anything. So I was a little confused on what he wanted to do. I didn't want to go to the library to not see him because that was a considerable drive too. And now I'm stuck. What do I do? Long story short, we didn't catch each other that day. And he did that quite a few times. Those last minute changes, his car broke down. I think what happened was I have a cancellation policy. The students have to cancel 24 hours before the session. I think when he wanted to cancel, he would play one of these games that would de facto cancel, but not have to. He felt like he didn't have to pay for the session. I don't know. But it became so annoying that I didn't want to check my email. And as a result, I missed an important email from my boss at my day job, and that was embarrassing. I mean, I played it off that the email somehow disappeared, but I know what happened, and I realized that it caused me a whole lot of strife. Now, about a month ago, I had applied for a job that was completely outside of my league, and I had used my personal email. I have a personal email and a workplace email. I used the personal email to apply for the job. It was completely outside of my league, and I got too afraid to look at my personal email. And so I've been using my workplace email for everything else, and it caused a lot of problems. Right, my workplace email was getting a ton of spam. Now I don't know how to get rid of it without missing important emails. And just 2 nights ago, I finally get the nerve to open my personal email. And you know what? That company actually wanted to talk to me, but it's been 3 weeks now, and I don't know if they still want to. And I cause a lot of strife with that. I need to get over this problem. I got to remember that none of these things are going to change whether or not I look at them. The only thing that's going to change is whether or not I know what's happening behind the scenes. And I have a lot of anxiety reading about the status of COVID. Also, at the beginning, I also didn't want to get tested, but then I wanted to travel, and some of the states had some requirements of getting tested. Even today, when I do get tested and that letter finally comes, I often almost get a heart attack trying to open that letter. Sometimes earlier this month when I opened the letter, my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't open the envelope. And when I finally opened it, it was like all the words on the page were jumping up and down. And I was scanning the page for positive, negative, and I couldn't find it. And it's just so weird. Anyways, I need to get over my mailbox kind of anxiety.